Hey there, my name is Antonio and welcome to the newest video on my channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to build a full-stack software-as-a-service AI platform, and you're going to learn how to build not just one, but 5 different AI tools. So let's go ahead and let me show you exactly what this amazing application is capable of. Let's start with the image generation. I think that's one of the coolest AI models in here. For example, a horse in Swiss Alps, and I can select the amount of photos I want to generate. Let's pick 4 photos in the lowest resolution so they load fastest. We have a prompt that Genius, the name of our app, is thinking, and after a couple of seconds you're going to see what amazing images this AI will come up with. Look at this, absolutely amazing. Now let's do the same thing but for video generation. Right here, I'm gonna write clownfish swimming around a coral reef, and I'm going to click generate again. And after a couple of seconds, you're gonna see what this AI will come up with. Look at this, absolutely amazing. Let's play the video to see what it looks like. Can you believe an AI has generated this? Absolutely amazing. Now let's check out the conversation model right here. But before I write anything here, I just want to quickly bring your attention to my lower left corner right here, where it says that I've used up 2 out of 5 of my free generations. So what does that mean? Well, let me remind you, this is not going to be your average AI tutorial. We are going to build a full-stack production-ready software-as-a-service platform, meaning that I'm going to teach you how to create a free tier as well as a monthly subscription tier using Stripe for your users. So let's go ahead and let's use up the rest of these models right here so we can fill up these free generations. I'm gonna ask the conversation model, what is the radius of the sun right here? We have a similar thinking prompt right here, and there we go, look at the answer, amazing. And look at this, now it says 3 out of 5 free generations, because we just used one. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's fill this up to 5 out of 5 so I can show you what happens then. I'm gonna test the music generation now. For example, piano solo right here. I'm gonna press enter, and after a couple of seconds, you're gonna see that this AI model can actually come up with audio files. Look at this, absolutely amazing. You can play it, you can change the volume, you can download the file, change the playback speed, amazing. I'm not gonna play it just in case someone decides to copyright AI music in the future. And now let's take a look at the last model right here, which is code generation. I'm gonna go ahead and write a model using React hooks and Tailwind. I'm going to press enter, and after a couple of seconds, you're gonna see that this AI model is capable of writing code for you. Look at this. Not only did it give you a nice explanation, it also wrote the code in Markdown, so it's nice and easy to read. Absolutely amazing. But what happens now that we've used up 5 out of 5 of our free generations? Well, let's go ahead and let's try to generate another image, for example. I'm gonna write a shark in the sea, and I'm going to press generate. And look at this, it's blocking us from using the AI. That's because you're going to learn how to build this. We're going to protect our free tier so the users who are not subscribed can only use the AI model 5 times. After that, they have to upgrade. So I'm gonna click upgrade right here, and that is going to redirect us to the Stripe checkout page right here. I'm gonna write a fake credit card number, some more fake information. I'm going to write my name right here, and I'm going to click checkout. And in a couple of seconds, we're going to get redirected to the settings page. There we go. Look at this, absolutely amazing. Now in our settings it says that we are currently on a pro plan, and we can of course manage our subscription from here if we want to cancel it. So let's go ahead and test how that looks right here. Again, this time it's not going to redirect us to the checkout page, but to the billing page. So I can see all of my information, I can see how long this lasts, how much I've paid, and I can of course cancel my plan. But now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna test if this subscription actually works. Let's go ahead and let's go into an image generation and write, I don't know, a pretty sunset. Now let's go ahead and generate 5 photos right now. We have a similar prompt that Genius is thinking, and you can already see this time we are not blocked by the premium model prompt. Instead, it successfully generated a pretty sunset. Beautiful. Let's try the conversation again. What is the radius of the Earth? There we go, we are not blocked again, so our subscription model is actually working. Perfect. And What would a software as a service be without customer support? In this tutorial, I'm also going to teach you how to build beautiful customer support using Crisp. You can go ahead and write any problem you have, just like this, and that is going to appear on the Crisp dashboard in real time so you can respond back to your customers. And we are also going to have authentication, this time using Clerk, which I am extremely excited to say is this video's sponsor and also my first sponsor ever. But that is not all, because every software as a service also needs a beautiful landing page. So I'm going to teach you how to create this as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's get started and let's set up our application. I'm going to follow the chast UI setup instructions. You can find those by googling chast UI, clicking on the website right here, and just go ahead into the documentation and click installation. After that, you have to select Next.js or whatever you are using. But in this tutorial, we're going to be using Next.js. So that's why I have this opened right here. So the first command we have to run is the create next app command. This command is actually not related to chast UI. This is the Next13 command, but it is written in this tutorial because this is a setup for Next.js. So here on the left side, I have my Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open my terminal. And I'm going to go ahead and write npx create-next-app at latest, and I'm going to name this AI-SAS. You can name it whatever you want. And go ahead and give it the following flags: --TypeScript, --Tailwind, and --ESLint, like that. Or you can simply press copy here and select npm. But I'm going to write it out so you can clearly see what I'm doing. And now we can go ahead and press enter. And I got a prompt that I need to install the newer version of Next app. So go ahead and just press yes if this is the prompt you have. There's a chance you just don't get that prompt at all and you immediately have this question right here. So the first thing it's asking us is whether we want to use the source directory. For that, select no. For the app router, this is very important. You have to select yes. For the import alias, you can select no. That is going to keep the default @ sign. And there we go. Now it's starting to install our application. So just wait a couple of seconds and you will have your app ready. After a couple of seconds, you're going to get a message similar to this saying success and that it has created a project called AI-SAS or whatever you named it in your command at this following location. So I'm going to click open right here and I'm going to select AI-SAS right here. And there we go. Now I'm inside of that folder. But before I start this application, I want to run the rest of the commands followed by the chast-cn instructions, because chast-cn is the library we are going to use for styling. So let's go ahead and let's open the terminal again right here. And I just have to quickly update this, so I'm going to pause the video. Alright, now I have to run the following command: npx chast-cn-ui at latest init. So let's go ahead and run that. npx chast-cn-ui at latest init, like this. And now we're gonna get a set of questions. So would you like to use TypeScript? For that, we select yes, because we initialized our Next13 project with TypeScript. Now it's asking us for the style. I'm going to use the default style and I highly recommend you do the same. You can choose New York if you want, so use arrow keys up and down to select the option. If you select New York, it's going to look slightly different. You can still follow the tutorial, but your icons are going to come from a different package than what I will be using in the tutorial. So if you don't want that confusion, just choose default and press enter. Now for the base color, you can select any color you want. It doesn't really matter, it won't affect the project, but it will look a little bit different than mine. So for mine, I'm going to choose slate, like this. It's asking us where our global CSS file is, and this is the correct answer, app/global CSS. Now, would you like to use the CSS variables for colors? Select yes as well. It's asking us where is our Tailwind config. It's at the root folder named exactly like this, so press enter for that. And configure the import alias for components. This looks fine, I want it to look like that, and you can press enter for this as well. And lastly, it's asking us whether we are using server components. Since you're using the app router, the answer for that is yes. And now it's asking us to confirm all of those options. So we pretty much didn't change absolutely anything. You can just press enter through all of these options. And now just press Y. And now it's going to initialize chast.cn UI inside of your project. There we go. Just like that, it has added chast.cn UI. And now we can go ahead and run npm run dev. And your project is running on localhost 3000. So I'm going to click on this link right here and I'm going to show you how your project looks. So I'm going to expand the screen and you should see something like this. So now let's go ahead and let's quickly clean up our application because there is a lot of stuff inside of here that we don't actually need. So I'm going to collapse everything, and as you can see, we have the app folder where most of our routes, all of our routes are going to be. We have the components, which are currently empty, but this is where the components from chast.cn are going to appear. We have the lib folder, which was generated by chast.cn UI, and we are going to use this to merge Tailwind classes. I'm going to explain that when we come to that part. And the rest is just the configuration for the project. So let's go inside of the app folder and let's take a look at what we have here. So we have two important files, page and layout.tsx. Our layout.tsx can stay pretty much the same for now. We can change that later. But now in page.tsx, what I want to do is I want to clean everything inside of the return function. So go ahead and go to the top all the way to the bottom and just clean everything inside. And you can also remove this import. And you can just write a paragraph, hello, AI, SAS, like that. And there we go. Look at this. It's right here, hello AI SAS, but the font looks kind of small. Let's see if we can increase it using Tailwind. Go ahead and add a class name, text-6xl, like this. There we go. Now the text is much larger. And let's try and change the color. Text green-500. There we go. So our Tailwind is successfully set up. Before we move on to the next part, I want to show you how easy it is to add components from chast.cn to our project. So I'm going to go back in here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to go all the way down to the components in the sidebar. And one of the components we are certainly going to need is the button component. And right here is the command we have to use to add it. But one cool thing about chast.cn UI is that you can also manually add it if you want to, so you don't have to use the CLI. Why am I choosing chast.cn and why not Chakra or Material UI Kit or all of these other amazing CSS frameworks? Well, the reason I'm using chast.cn UI is because it works in a different way. Chast.cn UI is not a component library. Instead, it is just a, I don't know exactly what is the correct phrase for that, but what it allows us to do is to keep the components inside of our components folder. Usually when we use Material UI or Chakra, we have no access to the components. We can import them and we can edit them using the props they've given us, but we have no access to the actual code that the way those components are working. They are in node modules, but with chast.cn UI, they are going to be directly in our components folder, so we can modify them in any way we want. So let's test this out. I'm going to go ahead and click copy here. So I advise you that every time I am on the chast.cn UI page, I advise you to do the same, because there are some parts that we cannot install as easily as this, but we're going to have to copy a code snippet. So I just want you to be on the same page as I am, so it's easier for you to follow this tutorial. So I'm going to copy this npm command right here. And I'm going to go into my terminal right here. You don't have to shut it down, but I will because I'm using only one terminal. And I'm just going to expand this a little bit and I'm going to paste this command. So the command is npx chast.cn-ui at latest add button. And I'm going to press enter like this. And now it's asking us whether we are ready to install that. So just press Y and there we go. It's installing the button inside of our project. I'm going to run npm run dev again, and let's see if we can actually use this button now. So what has happened in our project? If I refresh right here, not much has changed. We still have the hello AI SAS, but let's take a look at our components folder right here. You can see that now we have a new folder inside called UI, and inside of that folder we have a button.tsx. And now if you look inside, you can see that we have this amazingly strictly typed written and area written button component. So this is a much more advanced button than what would usually be if we were writing it ourselves. And I think that's absolutely amazing. And what's cool about it is that you can rename absolutely anything you want inside. So whatever you don't like, you can rename. So you have complete ownership of your component system. That's why I really like chast UI. So we have just added this button, and technically we never have to look at it again. You can just close this altogether. And let's go back into our home right here, and I'm going to replace this, and I'm actually going to use that button. So I'm going to write button like this, and I'm going to import it from add/components/UI/button like this, and make sure you destructure it like that. And I'm going to write click me like this. And I'm just going to increase my zoom a little bit so you can see better. There we go. Look at the button right here. And let's see how easy it is to change the variant, for example. I can go ahead and say destructive like this. There we go. Now it's red, and we can use that for when we are deleting some stuff. And I just want to show you how cool it is. For example, you can go back into components UI button, and this is the destructive style that we are using right now. Let's say you don't like the word destructive. You can go ahead and change that to danger. So you don't have to do this. I'm just demonstrating now. You can change that, and you can see now our code is not working. And you can see I have a TypeScript error here. So I can change it to danger right here, and there we go. Now it works. So that's what this component library, well, it's not a component library, but that's what chast UI offers us. I think it's really cool that we have this kind of customability here. So just make sure you bring this back to destructive. I'm not going to change the button component in any way, but I'm just going to bring this back. So destructive, like that. And I just want to show you that you also have a couple of other props like size. So you can change the size to large, for example, and now the button is a little bit larger like that. Great. So this is how we are going to add components in our project, and then we're going to style them, and we're slowly going to create our UI. Great start. You did an amazing job. And now we are ready to go ahead and start developing some other stuff. Let's continue with the structure of our project. So I'm going to go back inside of my app folder, and I'm going to go inside globals.css right here. So everything that you see right here has actually been generated using chast UI. But this is fine. I just want to add one thing here, and that is the height for our HTML and our body. So let's go ahead and write this HTML, body and root element like this. And I just want to write height 100%. And that's not going to change anything right now, but it is going to help us in the future. Great. And now I want to go back inside of my layout.tsx file right here. And I want to change the title of my application to Genius. And I want to change the description to AI platform. Like this, but with a capital AI, like this. And now you can see that my title right here has changed to Genius. Previously, it was, let's see, it was Create Next App. But after we do the changes, it now says Genius. Great. So what I want to do now is I want to organize my routes in a specific way. But before I do that, I want to give you a quick explanation of how routes actually work inside of Next. So right here, we have this page.tsx file. But how do we know that that is located right here at the slash? Well, that's because if you have a page.tsx plainly put inside of your app folder, that is going to result in the URL slash or just your domain like this. But what happens if I create a new folder, for example, called test, and inside I create a new file, page.tsx? I'm going to quickly go ahead and write test page right here, and I'm going to write a div test page like this. So make sure you have the test page and export default test page at the end. It's important that you use export default. Now, how do I find this page? Where is this? Well, it's located at /test in your URL. Right here. So now we know that every folder we create inside of the app folder, which has the page.tsx inside of it, is a route on its own. But there is also a way that you can use folders and page.tsx without actually affecting the URL. This is a cool feature because sometimes we want to organize our routes in folders but not necessarily change the URL structure. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut down my application because we're going to do some changes in here. So I recommend you shut it down as well. So let's go ahead. Now if you refresh, nothing's gonna work, but that's fine. first thing I want to do is I want to delete the test page. Great. And what we're going to do now is something called route groups. So right here in my right side, I have the explanation for that. So route groups is a specially named folder which does not affect the URL. So you can go ahead and read more about that. Just type in route groups next.js and you're going to find this exact documentation. You can see the convention. The convention is to write the folder inside of parentheses. That way, it's not going to be affecting the URL. So you can see that right here they have a folder called marketing, but the URL is just /about. Nowhere in this URL do you see the marketing. That's because they are just using it to structure your files. And that's exactly what I want to do as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back inside of my app folder right here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new folder called dashboard, like that. And inside of that dashboard, well, I made a mistake here. Right now, this is affecting the URL. So we have to rename this. Right click, go ahead and rename this and make sure you add parentheses around dashboard like that. Now it's not affecting the URL. So what I want to do now is go ahead and create another route group inside called routes like this. What this is going to hold is all of the routes for our AIs. So inside we're going to have a route for image generation, video generation, our general dashboard, code generation, and settings. So inside we can actually go ahead and write the route which is going to affect the URL. This route is going to be called dashboard, like that. So this one won't matter for the URL, neither will the routes, but this one will. And inside I'm going to go ahead and create page.tsx. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my old page.tsx that is inside of the root of the app folder. So go inside of here and just copy everything inside and paste it in this new dashboard page.tsx, right this. And you can rename this to dashboard page like that. So just make sure you export the default. You will sometimes see me using the function and sometimes you will see me using the, this const dashboard page, the arrow function, and I will export default dashboard page. It really doesn't matter. It's gonna have the same effect, it's just your preference. Of course, there are differences between arrow functions and plain functions, but that is not the topic of this tutorial. But just to ease up some confusion, it doesn't really matter what you use, but you can always follow exactly what I do so you have the same result. So for the dashboard page, I'm gonna write const dashboard page, arrow function, and export default the dashboard page. The naming of the component does not matter for the URL. You can name it whatever you want, but I like the convention of using the entity name and then capital P page. Beautiful. And now that we have this, I actually want to remove this root page because we don't need it. So you can move that to trash. Great. And what happens now? Well, we have a problem because this is a route / dashboard, but we don't have our / route. We don't have the root. So let's go ahead and create that. For that, I'm going to create another route group called landing. Like this. That's going to be our landing page if you remember from the intro of this tutorial. And inside, go ahead and create another page.tsx. I'm going to go ahead and create the landing page like this, div landing page. And I'm going to write in parentheses here, unprotected. So every user, whether they are logged in or not, are going to be able to see this landing page. Great, so now that we have these two, let's go ahead and let's run our project and let's see if we made any mistakes or if everything is working as expected. So I'm going to refresh this right here and I am at /test, so I got a 404. So I'm going to go back to my root and I should see the landing page right here. Perfect. Great. So how do I see this dashboard? Let's see. This is not affecting the URL. Routes is not affecting the URL either, but dashboard is. That means that all I have to do to visit this page, I'm going to change this now. I'm going to write a paragraph saying dashboard page like this. So in order to visit this page, all I have to do is write /dashboard like this. There we go. Now I have the dashboard page, but on the root I have the landing page. And I just want to add here protected. So only authorized users, and you can remove the import for button. We're not gonna need it now. So only users who are authorized are gonna be able to see the dashboard page. For now, of course, that is not true because we have not added authentication. So that's what we're gonna do in the next part. But for now, this is great. You've done a great job so far. So let me just recap what we've done. We have removed the page.tsx inside of our app folder, and we've moved it inside of landing page.tsx. But because landing is inside of parentheses, that means that we are using the route group convention. Right here, you can see it's in the parentheses, meaning it's not affecting the URL. It's just a folder where we decided to keep our root page for easier structure. And then in dashboard, we used a bit of a different structure. So again, we used route group, so it's not affecting the URL, but we did not put page directly inside. Instead, we created another route group called routes. That's because besides dashboard, we're gonna have many folders inside of this route. And inside of dashboard, right here, we're gonna have another file called layout. So this way, we have structurally separated our routes from our other stuff. Don't worry if this is a bit confusing, it's gonna get easier and easier the more you work with Next. Now it's time to add authentication to our project. So before we start anything, what I want to do actually is shut down our application so we don't get any hot reloading errors. So I'm going to shut it down, and I recommend you do the same. Great, and we're going to add authentication using Clerk. So you can either visit clerk.com or visit the link in the description, or just use Clerk Auth right here, and it's the first result on Google. Great, so go ahead and find the sign in or sign up button depending on whether you already have an account. So I'm gonna guide you through this process. You can use GitHub or Google or regular registration. I'm gonna use Google for this one. So I'm gonna pause the video a bit and register. There we go. Now you're gonna see a screen similar to this. And now it's time to name our application. So I'm gonna use AI-SAS for this right here. And you can play around and add as many providers as you want. But for now, I'm only gonna enable Google and email address. But feel free to enable as many of this if you want to play around. Clerk is truly amazing when it comes to how easy it is to build with it. Now let's go ahead and click Create Application right here. And now you can see that we have a documentation to how to start implementing this in our app. So right here we have .environment.local right here that we have to copy and put in our environment file. This file is going to hold our secrets, which Clerk library is going to use to enable authentication in our project. So go ahead and click the copy right here. Go ahead back inside of your project, and I want to create a new file. Instead of .environment.local, I'm going to use .environment. This is because we're going to need .environment for Prisma. So go ahead and just paste that inside. So make sure you have the next public Clerk publishable key and Clerk secret key. Basically what is written in this documentation right here, and make sure you save your .environment file. Great, and now just make sure that Next.js is selected right here, and we're gonna click continue in docs. And what I love about Clerk is that they have support for the app router. That gives me confidence that it's going to work in this project. And I already used Clerk in my last e-commerce project, and if you saw that, then you know how easy it is to implement Clerk and what amazing UI components it offers. They are beautifully designed and they fit almost every single project. So let's continue and let's follow this documentation and see exactly what we have to build. So first it's telling us to install Clerk Next.js. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to go inside of my terminal and I'm going to install that package. So let's go ahead and write npm install @clerk/next.js like this. And after a couple of seconds, our package is going to be installed. Great, now let's continue and follow what the documentation is telling us to do. So it's telling us to set our environment keys, but that is something we already done, so we have them right here. So we can skip that and go to the next step, which is mount the Clerk provider. And this is what I was talking about. So if you're using Pages for any reason, you can just click Pages and follow that. But we are using the app router, so make sure you're following the documentation for the app router. So what we have to do is we have to import Clerk provider from @clerk next.js. next.js. So I'm going to close the terminal for now, and I'm going to go back inside of my app folder inside layout.tsx right here, because that is the component they are looking at here. So let's go ahead and copy this line, and let's go ahead and import it right here. There we go. Clerk provider from @clerk/next.js. And what we have to do now is we have to wrap our entire application inside of that clerk provider. Let's go ahead and write clerk provider like this, and at the end like that. And I just want to indent everything inside. Beautiful. And now let's go ahead and add our middleware file. So go to your sidebar right here. I'm going to close everything again. Make sure you're at the root and just create a new file called middleware.ts. And go ahead and copy this entire file from the documentation and just paste it here. There we go. Beautiful. And now what we have to do is we have to create our sign up and our sign in page, and they have the exact steps to do that right here. So let's go ahead, let's go inside of our app folder, and let's go ahead and create a new folder. I'm gonna go ahead and create another route group here called auth, like this. Beautiful. And inside, I'm going to create another folder called routes, because we're going to have two routes, the sign up and the sign in. And I'm also going to add a layout inside. So let's go ahead and create a new folder inside of this route group routes. And we're going to call this sign-up like that. And then inside of that, we have to create another folder. Go ahead and open square brackets, then again open square brackets inside. So double square brackets. This is another Next 13 convention that allows a clerk to have all the necessary routes it needs for authentication. And inside, you're going to spread using 3 dots sign-up like that. And then go ahead and create a new file called page.tsx. There we go, just like that. And then you can go ahead and copy this example and paste it inside. Beautiful. So it's that simple to create a sign up page. Great. And we have to do the same thing for the sign in. So you can just copy this entire folder, paste it inside routes. So now you have sign-up and sign-up copy. Just rename this to -sign in like this. And inside, don't forget to rename this folder as well, like this, -sign in. Beautiful. Go inside of that page.tsx, and you can go ahead and copy this example and paste it right here. I'm having an error here, but that is because of my Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to press Command, Shift, and P, and I'm going to write reload window. And I'm going to press enter. So this has refreshed my Visual Studio Code, because sometimes cache gets in the way and shows us errors that aren't actually there. You can see that now everything works just fine. So let me show you the exact layout right here. So I created a new folder called auth, which is a route group, meaning it will not affect the URL. Inside, I created another folder called routes, again in parentheses, so not affecting the URL. And then we have the sign in and the sign up with a special convention folder inside of it, so it has all the necessary routes for clerk. There we go. That's how easy it was to add our sign in and sign up pages. And now what we have to do is add some more environment variables, so clerk knows where to redirect us after we log in, or where to go in general for sign in and sign up. So go to this section called update your environment variables, and I'm just going to copy this right here. I'm going to go back in my .environment file, and after this too, I'm going to paste this. So make sure you have the sign in URL, sign up URL, after sign in URL, and after sign up URL. And one thing I want to change immediately is that after we log in, where do we want to be redirected? Let's take a look. So we said that our landing page is going to be unprotected, but our dashboard page is going to be protected. So obviously what I want to do in my environment file is that after user has logged in, I want to redirect to /dashboard like that. We don't want our user to stay on the landing page. Beautiful. How do we know that this is /sign-in and that this is /sign-up, and can we change it? Of course we can, but it has to match exactly what you write in your auth folder. So if you want to change this to login, you can do that, but make sure you change the ... login as well. If you want to change this to register, you can do that as well, and make sure you change that. And it has to match these two environment variables. If you're following these tutorials, you don't have to do anything like that, just follow along. Beautiful. And now I'm going to show you a really cool thing. I want to go back inside of my middleware. So go inside middleware.ts, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to add a public route. So right now, all of our routes are protected, but I want to add public routes like this, and I just want to give it a slash, meaning our landing page is now unprotected, meaning that both logged in and logged out users can visit it. So let's go ahead and let's run our application and see how that looks right now. So I'm going to go ahead and write npm run dev again, and I'm going to go and visit my localhost 3000, and I should be able to normally visit the landing page. There we go. But if I go to /dashboard, what's going to happen is that I'm redirected to sign in right here. Beautiful. So it fully works. What I want to do now is I want to center this so it's not right here in the corner. So let's go ahead and do that now. In order to do that, we're going to have to go back inside of our app folder, inside of our out right here. I'm going to close the routes, and inside of the out folder, create a new file called layout.tsx, like this. Go ahead and write out layout like this, and it's going to accept children, and those children have a type of children react.react node, like that. And inside, I'm going to write a div, and I'm going to render children inside. And now our error has gone away. And all we have to do to center it is class name flex items-center justify-center, like that. And you can give it an h-full as well. And now you can see it's nicely in the middle. Beautiful. So this now works for both sign in and for sign up, because we have added a common layout file, which is going to affect all of the routes inside. We're going to do a similar thing in the dashboard. So that's why I separated this in a folder called routes. So there's a very clear distinction that the routes are only inside of this folder, and this layout thing is inside this main group folder right here. Perfect. So let's go ahead, and I want to go to the landing page right now, and I want to show you how to add a button which is actually going to redirect to our authentication. So let's go ahead, and just below that I want to add another div, and I'm going to add a button like that. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. So I'm going to go ahead and write login, for example, here, and I'm going to wrap this in a link from next/link, like this. And I'm going to add an href/sign-in, like this. So now when I click here, you can see that I am on the sign-in page. Great. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to copy this entire thing like this. And I'm going to change this to sign-up, and this is going to be register. Great, so now we have the login and the register. So once I click login, you can see I'm in sign in. When I click register, you can see that I'm in the register. Beautiful. And one more cool thing I want to show you while we're already here is that you can play around and customize stuff as much as you want inside of your clerk. For example, click on customization right here, go and check out the branding. So you can see that once I click here, it says sign in to continue to AI-SaaS. But we said that our name is going to be called Genius. So let's go ahead and name it Genius and just click apply changes. And now, once I go back and change it here, you can see that it says to continue to Genius, the name of our application. That's how easy it is to work with the clerk. And you can play around and change whatever you want. You can look at these hosted pages if you want to. You can change the colors, a bunch of stuff. You can play around with it as much as you want. But now let's go ahead and let's actually show you how it looks when we log in. So I'm going to click login right here. I'm going to use Google. And since I have only one account, I'm immediately going to get redirected to the dashboard page. So this is now fully working. We are officially logged in. That's how easy it was to use Clerk. And let me show you a cool component that we can use now. So let's go inside of the app folder, inside dashboard, routes, dashboard, page.tsx. And I'm going to go ahead and write this entire thing inside of a div. And just below this, I'm going to add a component from the Clerk library called user button. So user button from @/clerk next.js. And look at this. Now we have the currently logged in user. And from here, you can sign out. And yes, right now we are redirected to this page, but I'm going to show you how to control where we are redirected once we sign out. So let's go back to localhost 3000. Let's log in again using Google. We are back here, and I'm going to add after sign out URL to be /. And now if you try and refresh and sign out again, you can see that we're back on the landing page. And if I go to /dashboard, you can see that I've triggered the sign in button. And once I log in, I can freely visit the dashboard page. So that's how easy it was to use Clerk. You can go ahead and play around and see everything it has, and they're constantly updating. I really like using Clerk, and I'm very happy that they're sponsoring this video because I want to use Clerk regardless if they were sponsoring this or not. You saw that in the e-commerce video. It really helped us save some time when I want to focus on more important stuff than authentication. Let's continue and let's start creating the layout for our dashboard routes. So first thing I'm going to do is just zoom in the code a little bit so you can see a bit better. Great. Now what I want to do is I'm going to close everything. I'm going to go inside of my app folder, inside of dashboard right here. And inside of there, so not inside routes, but inside dashboard, I'm going to create a new file called layout.tsx like that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a component called dashboard layout. Just like this, and the props is going to have is children, and we're gonna write the types for those. So children is the type of React node like this. Perfect. And inside of this dashboard, inside of this dashboard layout, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a div, and I'm gonna give this a class name of h-full like this. And I'm also gonna give it a class name of relative because we're gonna use some absolute elements in the future, so it's gonna be very useful to have this. Great, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div for our sidebar. So let's go ahead and let's write class name hidden by default. So on small devices, we're not going to show this sidebar. We're going to have a toggle button, which is going to open that in a sheet component, also known as drawer. Maybe you've heard it like that. And let's give this an h-full. Let's go ahead and give it an MD of flex. So it's going to be hidden on mobile devices, but when we come to a medium screen, we're going to use flex. That means it's going to be visible using the flex element. Now let's go ahead and let's write the following. MD is also going to have a flex dash call like that, and MD is also going to be fixed on the side. Let's also write MD inset dash y -0, and let's give it a z index of 80 like this. Like this. And let's write bg-gray -900 like that for now. Great. And now inside, what you can do if you want to is just a div like this and write hello sidebar like that. And now you can see that we have a sidebar which has this BG gray color right here, and if you collapse your screen enough, you can see that it disappears because on mobile it's going to be hidden. Great, so just keep it open for now. Make sure you are not, if you're zoomed in, it's also going to disappear, so make sure you're not too zoomed in and make sure you can actually see this sidebar because that's the way we want to develop for now. Of course, we're going to replace this div with the actual sidebar component when we get to creating that. But before we do that, I want to create a main element right here, and I'm going to give this a class name. On medium devices, I'm going to go and give it a padding left of 72. That's because this this element right here, something I forgot to put here, it seems. So let's see, I put MD fixed and MD inset, but one thing I forgot to do after MD flex is give it a width. So go ahead and just after this MD flex, give it an MD W-72 like this. So great, now you can see that it has filled up more of my screen. So these are the classes needed for the container which is going to hold the sidebar. Hidden, h-full, MD flex, this is important, MD W-72, MD flex called, fixed, and the positioning for it. Great, and now it looks much better. And now inside, I'm giving this main content a padding of left of 72. So if I write hello content inside, like this, you can see that it's not overlapping with the sidebar. If we don't have this class, you can see that it disappears. It's behind the sidebar. So this way we push it for the amount of 72, which is the same value of the width of the sidebar, meaning that it's always going to be visible because it is going to be pushed further than the width of the sidebar. Great. And now what I want to do is inside of this main is actually render the children like this. So now you can see that we have this dashboard page rendered inside. If you're not seeing any of this, just make sure you're on the dashboard page. That's very important. Great. Now I'm going to replace this hello content with a navbar component. And if we save, of course, we are going to get an error because navbar component does not exist. So let's close our app folder. Let's go inside of components. And I'm not going to do this inside the UI folder. I'm going to reserve the UI folder for chat.cn components. So this is going to be our custom component. So let's create a new file and let's name it navbar.tsx. So just make sure it's not inside of the UI folder. It's still going to work if you put it inside, and if you want to, you can do that, but I'm going to do it like this. And let's go right and write navbar like this. It's not going to have any props. Let's give this a class name of flex items center and p-4 like that. And for now, all I'm going to do for the toggle button for mobile sidebar is going to be a button. So I'm going to import that from ./UI button, but I'm going to replace this from /components because I want to use this alias rather than relative imports. I think they look nicer. Both is working. So you can also use, of course, ./UI button, but I just prefer it this way. I want to be consistent. And I'm going to use the menu icon from Lucid-React. If you're wondering where did this package come from, we got it when we installed chat.cn UI. And that's what I mentioned in the beginning. If you chose a New York style instead of default style, you will not have Lucid React installed. You're going to have Radix icons. So if you want to use that, go ahead and find the equivalent Radix icon for that. But if you follow the tutorial exactly as I did, then no problem. You have this and you can just save the file. And in this button, I'm going to give it a variant of ghost, and I'm going to give it a size of icon, and the class name is going to be MD hidden. Like that. Okay, so we have the basic navbar right here ready. So let's go back to our dashboard layout, and now we can go ahead and import this from @/components navbar like this. And now when I save this, we cannot see anything. But if I collapse, there we go. You can see that I have a toggle button, which later is going to open a mobile sidebar. But on desktop, it's not visible because we don't want it to be visible. Great. Now I just want to quickly clean up my dashboard route. So go into the dashboard folder, into routes, dashboard page.tsx, and remove this user button and remove the import. So a very clean dashboard page like that. So now we can go back into our components inside navbar.tsx right here, and we're going to actually add that user button here instead. So go ahead and open a class name here, a div with a class name of flex w-full and justify-end, and go ahead and write the user button from @/clerk next.js like this. So now you can see that our user button is in our navbar right here at the top. Perfect. And don't forget to give this a prop of after sign out URL to go to / Perfect. Let's test it out. So if I sign out, I am back. Oh, I did not refresh. My apologies. So I'm going to go back to localhost. I'm going to refresh this time. I'm going to click login. I'm going to use Google login. And if I try again, there we go. Everything is working fine. So just log in and make sure you're on the /dashboard again, so you can continue developing this. Great. So now that we have our navbar set up, what we're going to do is we're going to actually create this sidebar component. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to replace this div saying hello sidebar with an actual sidebar component. Right now, of course, this sidebar does not exist, so we are going to get an error. We're going to create our sidebar in the very same place where we created our navbar. So I'm going to close the app folder, and inside of the components folder, I'm going to create a new file called sidebar.tsx like this. Perfect. So let's go ahead and let's start developing this. First thing I want to do is I want to mark this as use client, because this is going to be a client component since it's going to have some route names and a bunch of other stuff like that. Great. What I want to do now is I want to, well, let's actually just start developing, so we'll slowly change things up how they need to be done. So let's go ahead and write this shorthand for sidebar like this. We're going to leave the props empty for now. My apologies, I added this. Okay, let's go inside of this return function. Let's write a div right here, and let's go ahead and write class name space -y -4 by -4 flex dash call h dash full bg dash open square brackets and write a hex code of 111827. So it's just a specific background color that I like, and text white like this. And inside I'm gonna write hello sidebar component like this. So make sure you have at least this, and then you can go back into app folder dashboard layout.tsx, and you can actually import this sidebar component from add/components sidebar the same way you did with navbar right here. Perfect. Let's go back in our sidebar component and let's continue developing this. So I'm going to remove this text hello sidebar component, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a div with some spacing. So let's go ahead and give it a padding on both sides of 3 and on top sides for 2, and flex -1 like this. And inside I'm going to use a link component from next/link like this. Let's go ahead and inside I'm going to write our logo text. Let's give it an href of /dashboard. So when users click on that, they're going to get redirected back to the dashboard. So once I click here, well, we are already here, so no effect seen, but it's going to be an effect when we have more routes. And let's give this some class names. So class name here is going to be flex items-center. And PL-3 and MB-14 like this. And instead of just a logo, let's go ahead and write a div here with a class name of relative W-8 H-8 and MR-4 like this. And inside I'm going to use an image component from next/image like this. And let's go ahead and give this a fill property, an alt property of logo, and the source is going to be /logo.png. If we save, we're going to get this broken image because this image has not been added to our project. We're going to add images inside of our public folder right here. So to find the logo, you can either find anything you want, any image you want, or you can visit my GitHub repository, link is in the description, go into my public folder, and just find logo.png, and you can just save that file like this and drag and drop it inside of public, and make sure it's named logo.png, not logo1 like it was in my case. And now when you refresh, there we go, you have a beautiful logo in the corner. Perfect. And now just outside of this div right here, holding our image, so below that, go ahead and open an h1 element genius like that. And let's give this some class names. So I'm going to style it by saying text-to-XL and font-bold like that. But one thing I want to do is I want to change the font of this text, but I want to keep the same font that it already is on the entire website. So I only want to change the font for this one h1 tag. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a specific package which we already have from Next. So let's go ahead and write const Poppins, which is going to be the name of the font I want to use. Oh, my apologies. It's actually going to be Montserrat. Is going to be Montserrat, which you can import from next/font/Google like this. So make sure you destructure it and import it from next/font/Google like that. And let's go ahead and give it a weight of 600 because we want a bold model, and subsets of Latin like this. I'm just going to collapse this so you can see it in a better way. There we go. So these are the properties of the Montserrat constant right here. Perfect. And what I want to do now is I want to append that to this class name right here. So I'm going to do that using the CN library, which we have in our utils right here, which we got from chat-cn UI. So let's go back in our sidebar. Where is it? It's right here. Okay. And I'm going to modify this. So instead of just strings, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this inside curly brackets like this, and I'm going to add cn, and I'm going to import it from add/lib/utils like this. So great. Now that we have that, I'm just going to separate it because I like to keep my personal imports below and global imports at the top like that. And how CN works is that it accepts class names inside of its parentheses, but you can add both the default class names like this, and then you can add a comma, and in here you can add conditional class names or specially generated class names like this constant right here. So I'm going to write Montserrat, which is this class with this constant that we added right here, dot class name like this. And once I save, you can see that my font has changed. Perfect. So why am I using CN? Why not just template literal strings or backticks, as maybe that's how you know them? Well, that's because this CN library is a specially made library which uses Tailwind Merge and CLSX to ensure that there is a proper way we are adding additional dynamic class names to Tailwind elements, meaning that it's going to override them if they already exist here, and it's not gonna create conflicts. Great. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and continue rendering the actual routes inside of here. But before we render the routes, we actually have to generate an array which is going to hold all of our routes. So let's go do that here at the top. Const routes is equal to a couple of objects inside. So make sure it's an array which holds object. The first object is going to have a label of dashboard. Like that. It's going to have an icon of layout dashboard, which you can import from Lucid React right here. href is going to be /dashboard like that. And we're going to have a color of text-sky-500. You're going to see what color is going to be used for in a second. Great. So I just added my first item here. We're going to add some more items, but before we finish this, I just want to render this out so you can see how it's going to look like. Let's go back here. I'm going to expand this as much as I can before it collapses to mobile. So like this, so you can see more of my code. All right, so outside of this link component right here, create a new div with a class name of space-y-1. So each element inside is going to be spaced evenly using this class name. And inside, I'm going to write routes, which we just created, .map. We're going to get the individual route right here, and I'm going to open an immediate return function. We're going to wrap everything in a link component, which we already have imported right here. And let's go ahead and let's give it an href of route.href, and let's give it a key, the same route.href, because it's guaranteed that that is unique. Perfect. Sorry, not lay, but key like this. Great. And now inside of that, let's write a div with a class name of flex items -center flex -1. And let's go ahead and render route.icon, which is a self-closing tag, and we're going to give it a class name, open curly brackets. We're going to use CN again, so we already have it imported. Default class names are going to be h-5, w-5, and margin right 3. And dynamic class name is going to be route.color. So that's the color that we're going to use. There we go. You can see how now our little icon is displayed right here with its specific color. And below the route icon element, we're just going to render route.label like this. So there we go. Now it says dashboard. What I want to do now is I want to give my link some specific class names. So let's go ahead and write class name right here, and we're going to write text-sm, we're going to write group, flex, padding -3, w-full, justify-start, font-medium, cursor-pointer, like that. Hover is going to be text-white, Hover is also going to be bg-white/10, meaning we are giving it an opacity, rounded-lg, and transition at the end like that. So now if you hover, you see you have a nice effect for each of your route. Great. So now what we can do is we can go back to our routes and actually create the rest of the routes. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And for my second route, I'm going to name this conversation like this. I'm going to change the icon to be message square from Lucid React, which I've imported at the top right here. Great. And I'm going to change the color to be violet like this. Great. Now let's copy this again. And for the third route, let's write image generation like that. And let's give this an icon of image icon from Lucid-React. So these are my icons so far. I have an image icon, I have layout dashboard and message square from Lucid React like that. And let's go ahead and change the color of this to pink 700 like that. Great. Let's copy this again and let's name this video generation and let's use the video icon again from Lucid React right here. And let's change the color of this to orange 700 like that. I'm gonna copy it 2 more times. So this one is going to be music generation and it's gonna have an icon called music. So just go ahead and import that from Lucid React as well and change the color of this to emerald 500 like that. Perfect. And last one is going to be code generation. Sorry, not last one. We also have settings. So this one is going to have an icon of code. So you can import that from Lucid React as well like that and give it a color of green 700 like that. And our last one is going to be simple. It's just going to be settings. Icon is going to be settings as well. So make sure you import that from Lucid React as well. It's not going to have any color like this. Perfect. So that looks much better now. And what I want to do now is just change each of their routes. So dashboard is fine. Conversation is going to lead to /conversation. Image generation is going to lead to /image. Don't worry about this. This is just hot reload adding. You can refresh and it's going to be normal. So don't worry about that. For video is going to be /video. For music is going to be /music. For code is going to be /code and settings is going to be /settings like that. And just refresh all of this so you don't have those things. Great. And now if you try and click on something other than dashboard, you're going to get a 404 because none of those routes exists yet, but they are going to exist in the future. Perfect. So now we actually have our working sidebar. What I want to do now is I want to enable it on mobile as well, because if you go ahead and collapse, you only have the toggle button, but no sidebar opening. So let's see how we can do that. Let's go back inside of our navbar component. So I'm going to find it like this. It's inside of your components folder right here. And what you want to do now, I'm still going to expand this just like this. What you want to do now is you want to replace this entire thing with its own component. So I'm going to copy this button which holds the menu icon and I'm going to go ahead and create a new component called mobile-sidebar.tsx like this. So let me just show you the name, mobile-sidebar. Make sure it's use client and let's just quickly export that. So mobile sidebar like that. It's not going to have any props for now, and you can go ahead and just paste this inside and make sure you add the imports from UI button like this, but I'm going to replace it with components and menu from Lucid React like that. And you know, I like to separate my imports. Great. Now we have that mobile sidebar, and now we can go back inside of navbar and replace this with mobile sidebar like this and import it either from /sidebar, or I like to use components like this, and you can remove the import from menu like that. Great. And now make sure you are in mobile view because we're going to work on mobile now. So either zoom in the page or collapse your screen so you don't see the sidebar and you see the toggle button. Great. So we can continue working in the mobile sidebar now. So I'm going to close everything besides that. What we have to do now is we have to add a specific component from chat.cn. So go ahead and go inside chast library. So either use the Google or link in the description, go inside components, and let's find the component we need, which is a sheet. So you can see how it works. It opens like a drawer on the side, which is exactly what we want. And the way we install that is by using npx chatcn-ui at latest add sheet. So I'm going to click copy, I'm going to select npm, I'm going into my terminal, I will shut down the app, and I'm going to press enter. And I'm just going to confirm this installation by pressing Y like this. There we go. So now it's installing sheet. Great. And after a couple of seconds, we can run the app again. So if you shut down the app, just make sure you refresh your application so it's up to date and collapse it, of course, on the mobile view. Perfect. And now what you're going to do is you're going to add the sheet component from ./UI sheet like that and wrap the entire component inside of that. But I'm going to replace this from /components like this. It's still going to work. And I'm going to replace this with sheet trigger. Sorry, I'm not going to replace anything, but I'm going to wrap it inside of sheet trigger like this. And one thing I just want to tell you is don't accidentally import stuff from Radix, because there are similarly named components from Radix, which are the underlying library that chatcn uses. So whenever you import stuff from chatcn like sheet or button or sheet trigger, make sure it's from /components UI sheet or .ui like this. So just make sure there's no Radix in your imports. We are not going to work with Radix directly. Great. And just below that, add sheet content also from UI components like this. So I'm just going to collapse this so it's importing in that way. And inside of my sheet content right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a property side to be left and a class name of p-0. So I want to remove any pre-made padding inside. And I'm simply going to render the sidebar component from ./sidebar like this, or from /components sidebar like that. And if you click now, look at this, absolutely amazing. Do you see how cool this looks? Exactly what we wanted. And of course, on desktop, there is no toggle button. Perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. And one more thing, let's see if we can improve this. Actually, you know what? It's fine for now. Let's leave it as it is. We're going to change the colors later on. You can see that our X button is actually dark, but we're going to solve that later. For now, this is what I want to do for this part of the tutorial. Great, amazing. One thing that we're going to add later in the sidebar when we add subscription is that little feature on the bottom that is counting how many free generations we have. But we're going to get to that once we implement Stripe and all the other things. Great job so far. Let's continue and let's actually create our dashboard page right here. But before we do that, I'm going to refresh a couple of times. I want to bring your attention that I'm getting these hydration errors right here. So let's quickly fix that. They're coming from this const mobile sidebar right here. So what I'm going to write is I'm going to write const is mounted, set is mounted right here, use state from React, default value is going to be false. Then I'm going to write a use effect, which I will import from React, the same place I did with use state, like this. And I'm quickly going to return an arrow function. I'm going to add an empty dependency array, and I'm just going to write set is mounted to true. And in here, I'm going to write if it's not mounted, return null like this. And now you can see that our hydration error has gone away. So this is a simple trick. You can fix components which are causing hydration errors by the way they are rendered. Perfect. So now that we have that, and still before we go and do something on the dashboard page, I quickly want to go back in my components inside sidebar.tsx right here. And what I want to do here is I want to mark this as use client. All right, we already did that. And then what I want to do is add a path name. So const path name is equal to use path name like this. And we have to import that from next navigation. So go ahead and import use path name from next/navigation like this. Perfect. And now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click a command which is going to collapse all the code inside so it's not like spreading around, so you can see everything in one file right here. And I'm going to find my routes.map. link component and you see this huge class name that we have. Well, we have to make it dynamic. That's because right now in my sidebar, you have no idea what route am I on, right? But I am on /dashboard. So what I would expect is that dashboard is looking like this, like when I'm hovering on it, right? But I want it to be like that regardless if I'm hovering or not. I want it to show to my users that that is the currently active page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the start of this class name, the end of this class name, and I'm going to wrap the entire thing in curly brackets like this. And then I'm going to use this very same cn tool. So cn, I'm going to open parentheses and I'm going to end them by the end of the annotations. So now the entire class name is inside of the cn. If I refresh, everything is staying exactly the same. Then I'm going to add a comma to add a dynamic class name here. And I'm going to expand this as much as I can, like that. And I'm going to write if path name, so if current path name is equal to this route href, that means obviously it is currently active and we have to highlight it in some way, but I'm having an error here. Let's see, I think I made a mistake. Yes, so const path name like this. Great, so now that we have the const path name, I can compare that. I can add a question mark and I can add a dynamic class name, which is going to be text-white and bg-white/10. Else, I'm going to use text-sync-400 like that. So now you can see that my dashboard is highlighted by default because I am on /dashboard. If yours is not highlighted, make sure that it's not misspelled right here in the routes constant. Beautiful. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's actually create our dashboard page. So I'm just going to expand it a little bit. I'm going to close everything. I'm going to go inside the app folder, inside dashboard, routes, dashboard, and page.tsx right here, where we have this page right here. Let's go ahead and let's remove this text and let's create a div with a class name of text, my apologies, margin bottom -8 space -y -4. And inside, let's create an h1 element, maybe better h2 element instead. And let's just write explore the power of AI like this. And let's give it a class name of text-2xl. So that's going to be on small devices, but on medium devices, we can increase it even more. So text-4xl like that. Let's give it a font bold and let's give it a text center like this. There we go. Below that, I'm going to add a paragraph, which is going to say chat with the smartest AI, experience the power of AI, or whatever text you want, it doesn't really matter. And let's give this a class name of text-muted-foreground like this. And you can see how now it's a bit muted. And if you're wondering where did this class name came from, that's because this is not a class name from Tailwind CSS. This is a class name from chat-cn UI. So that's why it's working here. Now let's use font-light. And let's give it the text of small on mobile devices, but on medium, we're going to use text-LG, so a bit of a larger text. And let's use text-center, so it looks nice and in the center. Perfect. Now, outside of this div right here, open another div, the class name of px-4 on mobile devices. On medium, it's going to be px20. On large is going to be px32 and space-y-4. Beautiful. Now let's go ahead and let's mark this page as use client because we're going to have some interactive elements inside. What we have to do now is we have to create our tools array so we can iterate over them right here. So let's write const tools is equal an array of objects. It's going to have a label of conversation like this, icon of message square, and you can import message square from Lucid React like this. Let's give it a color of text-violet-500. Let's give it a BG color of text-violet-500/10. My apologies, not text, but BG. And let's give it an href of /conversation like that. And now inside of here, let's go ahead and let's iterate over our tools. So tools.map tool, and immediately go ahead and return a new element that we need, which you can get from chast UI. So we have to go to chast UI and add a new component. So let's go in here, and in the sidebar, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to find the card element right here. So this is what we want. I want this element right here. So I'm gonna use this command npx chast-ui at latest add card. I'm going to copy the command as npm, and I'm going to go inside of my terminal, and I'm going to paste the command right here. I'm going to confirm that I want to install it, and I'm going to run npm run dev like this. So make sure you refresh your project after that. Beautiful. So now we have a new component in our components style. Great. So go ahead and add that. So card from add/components UI card. Make sure you've imported it like this. And I'm going to separate my imports. Beautiful. And let's go ahead and let's give it a key of tool.href like this. And I'm just going to collapse this element like this because I'm going to add a bunch of class names so it's a bit more readable for all of us. Let's go ahead and let's write class name to be p-4 border-black/5 flex items-center justify-between hover shadow-md transition and cursor-pointer like this. Beautiful. So now you can already see a little box right here that has appeared because I have one element in tools and I am iterating over it and rendering this card with these class names. And this class name has a class that when we hover, we add a little shadow to it right here. So I can even zoom in so you can see a bit better. It's very subtle, but I think it looks nice. Great. Now inside of that card, create a new div with the class name of flex items-center and gap-x-4 like this. And inside of that, you're going to create a new div with a class name, open curly brackets, use the cn library from add/libs utils like this, and go ahead and open parentheses. Let's write some default classes. So that is going to be p-2 w-fit and rounded-md. And a dynamic class name is going to be tool.bgcolor like that. Beautiful. And inside, we're going to render tool.icon, which is a self-closing tag. And I'm going to give it a class name, again, curly brackets, open cn and parentheses inside, w-8 and h-8 for the default class, and dynamic class is going to be tool.color like this. There we go. So you can see how nice that looks. Perfect. And now, just below this div, which is rendering our icon, go ahead and create a new div with a class name of font-semi-bold like this. And inside, you're going to render tool.label like that. Beautiful. And now, outside of this last div, but still inside the card element, you're going to render arrow right component from lucid-react like this. And it is a self-closing tag. Just make sure you've imported it here at the top. And let's go ahead and give it a class name of w-5 and h-5 like this. Beautiful. And now let's go ahead and let's actually add some more tools right here. So I'm going to copy this same way we did with the sidebar. So I'm going to write for the second one to be music generation. The icon I'm going to use is music, so import that from Lucid React. The color is going to be emerald like this. And the href is going to be /music like that. Let's go ahead and copy that again. And don't forget to add a comma. The third one is going to be image generation. It's going to have an icon of image icon. So import that from Lucid React as well. I'm just going to collapse this so it's a bit nicer to look at. There we go. So we have the image icon now. Let's change the color to be pink. And I'm not going to use 500 but 700 for both of these colors. And href is going to be /image. Beautiful. Let's copy that. Don't forget a comma. This one is going to be video generation. So video generation, image is going to be video icon. So again, make sure you have that imported from Lucid React. The color right here is going to be orange 700 like that. And let's go ahead and copy the last one, which is going to be code generation. The icon is going to be code. So again, make sure you have imported that from Lucid React, and the color is going to be green like this, and href is going to be code. And we also have to change the href for video to /video like that. Beautiful, absolutely amazing. You can see how nice this looks even on desktop and on mobile as well. Perfect. And just one more thing I want to add before we wrap up the dashboard page is that when we click on this card, so go ahead and find the tools.map, find the card element and right on click to be an arrow function. And right now we actually can't do anything. We have to add the router. So const router is equal use router, but not from next/router. We have to use next/navigation like this. So make sure you have imported use router from next/navigation, and I'm gonna move that to the top right here. Perfect. And now that you have this constant use router, let's go ahead and finish this arrow function. It's gonna write router.push tool.href like this. There we go. So now when I click on conversation, we are redirected to /conversation, but we get a 404 because that does not exist yet. And that is true for all of those here. Beautiful. You have finished the dashboard page for your application. You have a working sidebar and a mobile sidebar as well. You also have implemented authentication. Great job. We can now finally go ahead and create our first AI tool, which is going to be the conversation. Great job so far. Now it's time to create our conversation page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close everything. I'm going to go inside of my app folder, inside the dashboard route group, inside routes, and on the same level as dashboard, I'm going to create a new folder called conversation like this. And inside, I'm going to create a new file, page.tsx. And let's go ahead and let's quickly export default a component called conversation page like this. And all I'm going to do in the return is a div saying hello conversation like that. And now that you have this conversation route right here, you can go ahead and click on conversation either in the dashboard or in the sidebar, or manually go to /conversation and you are going to see that route right here. So you can try it from here, and from here it should be exactly the same because the href is matching. Perfect. Now what I want to do is I want to replace this text hello conversation with a heading component.